Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Matt Thibault. I'm responsible for cybersecurity awareness, solutions, and sales across our customers in the public sector. We here at AT&T are very excited about the investment capabilities with regard to Zero Trust, both in this Attucks demo series and the public sector in general, and really looking forward to sharing our story with you today. So going on to the agenda, first we're going to start off with introductions for the team, and then we're going to go into general overview of what AT&T Cybersecurity does, our current place in the market, and finally transition over to our technical team to start with the Zero Trust demonstrations, use cases, and what we've built within our demo lab environment. And then finally, we'll toss it back over to you guys for some question and answers at the end. So to start us off, right, it's very important for us to recognize that AT&T is a Zero Trust Architecture vendor agnostic integrator. We understand that customers and enterprises are within their own Zero Trust journeys, and they need to be able to be met with the vendors and products that they need specific to their enclave, rather than trying to fit in, commercially off-the-shelf solutions that may not be the best fit in their environment. We want to provide this wrapped with our cybersecurity services, specifically network operations and security operations centers as a service, to make sure you have the continued visibility, analytics, and incident response capabilities wrapped into these Zero Trust solutions. And we're going to dive into SOCaaS as a service here in a second. So starting off with our management team, we're a very large organization, 650 business professionals spread across multiple organizations. We're helmed by Chris Smith. He's our Vice President of the civilian market verticals and also shared services, which provides business development, capture, and proposal services across the federal and state agencies, as well as a core technical team, which many of us are part of. Vanessa Lambden is Chris's peer on the cybersecurity edge and operations side, and she's responsible for bringing product and services to market to meet the needs of our customers. There's a list here of assistant vice presidents and other management personnel who assist us day in and day out, but we won't go into their specifics. So for this purpose of Attucks, we have three contacts. Sean McMillan's a newly appointed Director of Federal Solution Sales and Acquisitions for us. Craig Barra on the line. He is kind of the program and project manager for this Attucks demo. And then Raymond Sons, the brains behind the operation, and we'll be hearing a lot from him today as well. And then finally, presenters. Myself, I'm going to kick us off here today. I fall within the Civilian Assured Services organization under Chris Smith. Lonnie Attucks will be up next. She is under Vanessa Lambden and supports our product management and development solutions in the cybersecurity operations. Ray I already introduced, and as well as Chris Mathers, who at our partner at Sapling Group is the Director of ServiceNow Solutions, and you'll hear from him as well. So now transitioning over to what AT&T Cybersecurity does and some of the government partnerships that we have. We are very fortunate and privileged to have a huge presence within not only the civilian space, but also the DoD, public safety, and intel community as well. Within the civilian space, we like to break our customers up into 6 market verticals that you'll see in front of you here. And these are some of the big agencies that we have the pleasure of serving, in some capacity within AT&T Security Services. The DoD as well has a handful of military branches that we support, and again, very, very proud and privileged to serve these agencies. So AT&T is well known as a network and mobile phone provider, and we have a huge security presence as well. We are tasked with securing one of the world's largest global networks, and to do that, we need a handful of security professionals. We have more than 2,000 spread across our organization. We see over 465 petabytes a day across our global backbones and networks. And in order to secure those networks of not only ourselves, but our customers, we've deployed and managed over 8 global SOCs in a 24/7, 365 manner. 2 of those are dedicated government and cleared facilities that we service customers out of today. And as part of that, we own and operate the largest open threat community, which is called OTX. And what that is it's a community of security professionals where indicators of compromise, signatures, and general security forums and security professionals can come in and co-locate, share intelligence, work alongside of each other. And we use those threat intelligence feeds within our tools and provide those capabilities to our customers as well. So in short, we have to protect our own global backbone, and it translates to the abilities of our customers as well. So from a security portfolio perspective, try to keep this in one slide. It's a little difficult at times, but what we like to focus on is 6 main pillars here, right? The traditional premise and network security that is going to be kept with Zero Trust, but very important that is kind of the bread and butter of what we do. So think about your traditional TIC 2.2 capabilities such as MTIPs, TIC 3.0 with forward-leaning capabilities defined by DHS, and what we call AT&T Government Trusted Internet. We are partnering with Palo Alto to provide this capability, and we think it's going to have a huge impact on the performance and capabilities of our customers. And then finally, custom integrated solutions. We understand that a lot of the times customers need those very tailored solutions that either meet them where they're at or get them to where they're going. So we provide that day in and day out, not only the design and development of it, but the day to operations, maintenance, and support of that as well. So when we're designing these capabilities and providing these managed services, it's important that the compliance and vulnerability management is there as well. We're seeing an increased requirement for FedRAMP Moderate, FedRAMP High, FISMA Moderate, FISMA High within solutions, and also making sure that these systems are continuously scanned, patched, and managed in an appropriate fashion. And we're seeing that is more critical than ever with things such as Log4j. With these capabilities and managed services, it's important also for us to have the security consulting and strategy practice to provide that advisory and kind of collaboration with our customers as well. It's great to have a killer on-prem or cloud-based security solution, but if a customer or even partners don't know how to leverage that in the appropriate fashion, understand the threat intelligence that's coming out of that, it's not as useful of a solution, and in the end state won't support the mission nearly as much. Zero Trust, Lonnie, Attucks, who I'm going to hand off to soon, is going to cover that for us. But one of the important tenets that kind of falls under the consulting aspect is we understand it's a journey. We need to have an understanding and a baseline of where our customers are at, so we can understand the priorities and processes that are going to best suit that particular enterprise. So that's something that consulting offers in what we call the readiness assessment and workshops, and Lonnie's going to run through some of the Zero Trust pillars and mappings that we have. AT&T is obviously very well known as a mobility and endpoint provider. So providing the security solutions such as managed endpoint detection and response integrated with our Security Operations Center is a powerful capability that we're seeing continue to be leveraged within the federal space. And then finally, my personal favorite, what I spend most of my time in, is the visibility analytics. We're going to dive into Security Operations Centers of Service here on the next slide. But AT&T also has, that unique visibility as a global security or a global network provider with what we call threat insights, where we can collect metadata off our peering points, bash that with our threat intelligence and proprietary intel, and then provide, good quality indicators of compromise and insights for not only customer security operations centers, but their security incident response teams as well, to understand what's going on in their network from an outside in view versus an inside out. And then we covered OTX a little bit previously, and threat hunting falls under, the general security operations centers practices. So in summary, AT&T, our security portfolio is vast. We can dive into this more and follow-ons if need be, but we think this covers, quite a bit of the landscape. So my final slide I'm going to talk through today is what we call Security Operations Centers of Service. So with dedicated or traditional dedicated network and security operations centers, we understand that those are extremely complicated, expensive, and difficult to maintain. From the facilities to the tool sets to the continuous compliance to continue to find and keep qualified and skilled staff, creating and maintaining and operating these 24/7, 365 environments is a very difficult undertaking, especially when it's in a dedicated fashion, and sometimes doesn't necessarily scale as much as it should be. So what we've done is we've created a multi-tenant consolidated network and operations center security framework where we want to create a multi-tenant environment where customers can come in, leverage the same processes, tools, facilities, and skilled staff to bring the economies of scale for infrastructure, the tooling, the people, as well as the speed of delivery that building a brand new or maintaining or upgrading a non-mature security operations center presents a huge challenge. So we find this to be a very, very usable and useful tactic for customers within the federal space, and we're finding that evolve into other public sector customers as well. We operate a DoD secret facility with the ability to go up to TS and others. We leverage industry best tool sets. Think about your traditional SIM, your IDS IPS platforms, your storage, all the core components, the ticketing systems that need to go into this, and continuously leverage surge staffing to swivel chair between customers to provide them the best experience at a cost that's lower and faster to deployment than a dedicated environment. And I should also mention the final point on that too is that this ATARC demo is rooted in that SOC as a service. So all the log feeds, all the incident response, all the automation that you're going to be seeing is kind of rooted in the security center processes. And Ray's going to get into this a little bit later. And I'm going to hand off to Lonnie at this point to run through some of the Zero Trust pillars and capabilities we have.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning. I am Lonnie Attucks, and I am a cybersecurity product manager. I help to develop products and services to support a Zero Trust architecture. Here at AT&T, we want to do our part to help ensure the safety of our nation by protecting network infrastructure and critical data as it's traversing the internet, wide area network, and local area networks that are utilized by you and your team on a daily basis to conduct business. With the recent and ever-evolving threats of cybersecurity, AT&T provides both existing and newly developed network and cybersecurity fully managed services. We offer product solutions in alignment with the DHS DISA pillars of Zero Trust and overarching themes of visibility and analytics, governance, and automation and orchestration, as you see here on this slide. AT&T cybersecurity services include our TIC 2.2 solution for MTIPS, our AT&T government trusted internet, TIC 3.0 cloud security solutions for branch office, remote user, and traditional TIC use cases. Secure Access Service Edge or SASE solutions, managed endpoint detection and extended response, and security orchestration and automation response services, also known as SOAR. Each of these managed services are designed to meet the standards and compliances and requirements of our government customers. AT&T employs the expertise of our experienced cybersecurity consultants to provide Zero Trust readiness consulting engagements, where we can assist you with an individual one-on-one or in a group setting with alignment, prioritization, and planning of implementation and network modifications along your journey toward Zero Trust. As a top-tier industry leader, AT&T understands the value of strong partnerships in both business and in supporting a network, which is why we've garnered a skill set in integrating the technologies of several other leaders in the cybersecurity space. Here are just a few. And so we're here today to provide you with a demonstration of these integration capabilities. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to one of our revered security architects, Raymond.
Hey, thanks, Lonnie. And it always throws me off when I hear being revered. I don't like to be revered, but I really appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and take over. I'm going to take over the sharing so I can, I always like to draw as a engineer, I always like to draw on diagrams. All right, so let me just introduce myself. I am Ray's son. I'm part of the Proof of Concept Lab in Oakton, Virginia. So in the Proof of Concept Lab, what we do is we do demonstrations not only of security, but also 5G, IoT, edge computing, software-defined networking. Right, so we have these demonstrations to help our agencies come in and be able to see what we can do. But besides that, being a proof of concept lab, we also bring in new vendors and new technologies. So if you as an agency have some need for something that you see, or something that we can bring, some new technology, we can put it into the environment, we can test it similar to what you have in your network to see if it really will fulfill your mission. So when we looked at Zero Trust, like we said before, we don't see it as like a single product. So we didn't want to take a single product or vendor and call this our Zero Trust solution. We recognize it's a journey and it's a lot of different products together. So what you see we put on here is like a diagram of what we have built out in the lab. And this way we can basically plug and play. All right, we can take in different vendors, we can put it in and use this as an architecture or a framework to work on Zero Trust solutions. And then we're going to take a subset of this, and then we're going to take a subset of what we have here, and then that's what we're going to work for our demonstrations. All right, so for our demonstration, we have a couple of vendors and partners here. We have SentinelOne, which we're using for our endpoint detection response. So these are like agents that are sitting on our workstations, our servers to provide protection. We're also using Cisco for two purposes, the SD-WAN capabilities. So we have a FISMA SD-WAN solution that provides connectivity between branch sites and also to our government trusted internet, our AT&T government trusted internet. We're also using Cisco to do multi-factor authentication, which we're going to be demonstrating also, because that's a very important part of Zero Trust and user identification. We also have some Palo Alto firewalls. So we'll see that in the environment. And also we're using Corsia. So Corsia provides machine-to-machine security. That's something that we may not be thinking about too much today, but hopefully these demonstrations will see the importance of that. Our AT&T government trusted internet is providing a security for our remote users and also our branch user use cases. And all these technologies, they're going to be sending logs into our Splunk instance, what we're using as a SIM to do security correlation, to basically find out what's going on in the network, to do some investigation to set off an alerts. And that's all being controlled by our CNOSC, our Consolidated Network Operations Center, Matt's favorite group that he loves talking about. So those are the folks that are really going to be doing the intelligence and the tuning of that Splunk. But what's really important, we can be doing a lot of this great work in the background, but all that ticketing or all those alerts, they're going to be sent to ServiceNow, which is going to give our customers visibility into what's going on. And it's going to provide orchestration, right? So a lot of SOC tooling and orchestration to be able to do this. All right, let's take a look to see how it all fits inside the environment. So over on the right side, this is where we have our headquarters location, right? So in our headquarters location, we have some Palo Alto firewalls that's fronting in the internet. We have a Palo Alto firewall that's providing segmentation for internal resources. And we also have our Splunk, right? So that's where all the logs are going to. Behind this firewall here, we have a high valued asset. I'm going to be referring to this as our fingerprint server. So that's just to represent that it's pretty critical data that we want to keep secure. Along that, we have our FISMA SD-WAN connectivity. So at the headquarters location, we have connectivity to a satellite office, both through an MPLS and also through the internet. At our satellite location, we have a use case for a satellite user. We're going to see them be able to go through our FISMA SD-WAN solution to the AT&T government trusted internet. Oh, sorry, I gotta move my my Zoom screen so I can point. All right, so it's going to go through our AT&T Government Trusted Internet, which sits out in the cloud, right, to provide security. And then we have cloud services, right? So we're utilizing some AWS to be able to provide, we're hosting some servers in there to use our demonstration. Also, we have our ServiceNow, our SentinelOne, and our Cisco Duo, which are sitting out in the, as SaaS solutions. All right, so we have 4 demos today. So we have a remote user use case, a satellite use case, a headquarters use case, and also a machine-to-machine security use case. So we have these 4 use cases. So we're going to run through those. You'll be able to see what we're doing with those. And also, throughout this whole demonstration, you'll be able to see what, as a customer, the interfaces you'll see. All right. So there's going to be some ServiceNow integrations and screens and ticketing you'll be able to see. And then at the end, we also have an executive dashboard. So you'll be able to take a look. This is what you would be able to, your front end interface to what we're doing in the background. And through this demonstration, we are going to see some of the tooling that our SOC analysts would be using. So, so it's just kind of like a little peek behind the curtain. All right, so for our first use case, I'm going to just use Lonnie as the example. So I'm going to say Lonnie is an agency employee. She works on her personally owned device, right? And she needs to get access to high valued assets. So she typically works from home or Starbucks, and she does a lot of traveling. So the importance of this use case is we need to know who she is, the status of her machine, and where she's located before we allow her access to the high value asset or our fingerprint server. So taking a look at the diagram, let's take a look at the different pieces. So we're going to be looking at and around in the middle, we have our user Lonnie. She's going to be attached to the internet. She's going to go through our AT&T Government Trusted Internet to servers in the back end. We're going to utilize Splunk, which is going to consume all the different logs from the different services. We have ServiceNow, which is going to do some ticketing. And for our multi-factor authentication, we're going to be using Cisco Duo, right? So in this demonstration, Lonnie's going to be sitting in the US and also overseas. Policy is going to be enforced in the cloud, being able to get access to public service or public cloud services that we are controlling through our AT&T Government Trusted Internet. All right, so I'm going to stop my video because I need to switch over and show you the demonstration. All right, so what we have here is Lonnie's desktop. Lonnie's laptop. She's working from home. So right now she needs to connect. She needs to do some research, right? She needs to do some background investigations. So we're going to go ahead and start our agent and authenticate, right? So she's going to do her first factor. And you see, this is where Duo pops up. We're integrating with some multi-factor authentication to be able to get access. I'm going to send a push notification, which I prefer a lot more than typing in different codes. Saves a lot of times. And then we connect. So the important thing to recognize here is we're connecting, and then also we're using the SentinelOne agent. So once we connect, the agent is checking on the machine to make sure that it's secure, or it's being, so it's either different agents that's installed, the operating system, making sure that this device is up to the standards. And so once it's connected, we go ahead and make a connection. We'll see that we are coming from the US, right? I'm going to go to a standard application. So this will be a not critical application. And we just have like employees that can load up pictures of their dogs, right? And also she can get to this high valued application. So essentially she can go ahead and do her background research. All right, so one day Lonnie drops her laptop, it's broken, right? So she has to go get it fixed. So what she still needs to do some work. So she grabs her husband's laptop and she loads up she loads up the agent thinking that she wants to be able to do work off of that laptop. You can see I already did the multi-factor authentication to log in, so we don't need to see that again. But you see at the bottom here, we're connected, right? So we're connected, but we're also getting a pop-up saying that this device is not up to specs for being able to connect to certain applications. So we're getting this pop-up, fail some security checks. She's gonna open up laptop, open up her husband's, or she's using her husband's laptop. You can see we're still coming from the US, trying to get to the standard application. So yes, even though she doesn't have full security on this machine, she can still get to some applications, but when she tries to get to this high valued application, she's being denied, right? So an important part about this in terms of zero trust is this idea that you have different states, right? You identify the user, what's the state of your machine or your device that you're connected to. All right, so a week later, Lonnie gets her laptop back and it's fixed, and she takes a vacation over to Ireland. So this will be her laptop over in Ireland. And you can see that we're back on we're having the SentinelOne agent, and we also did the multi-factor authentication and we're connected. So if we go ahead and take a look, we'll see that, yeah, she's coming in from Ireland. She goes to your standard application. She can get to that, check out the latest pictures of the employee dogs. And then when she tries to get to the high valued app, she's being denied, right? So what's going on? So depending on her geolocation, she's either being allowed access to the application or not. All right, let's take a look to see what's doing this. And I will log in. Give me a second. So this is the portal. This will, what our customers will be able to see the policies of what's controlling that access. All right. So when I'm logged in, so over here, the first rule here, we can just take a look at some of the principles of zero trust. We have like a location, we have users, we have some additional checks within the machine to make sure it passes before they're allowed to go through. All right, so all the enforcement's happening on here. The logs are being sent to our Splunk instance. And then we take a look at our Splunk instance here, and we see that there is a violation. So Lonnie is trying to access this high value app from outside the US. And you can see that we have a ServiceNow ticket that's open for this violation. And I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it over to Chris to talk about some of the ServiceNow.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. So good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Masters. I'm the Director of ServiceNow Solutions at Savvy Group. We are an elite ServiceNow partner, and our customers primarily focused in the IC sector. And so I'm going to be walking you through the ServiceNow piece of today's demo, but I want to start with the Splunk notable event, just so I can show you a few things here real quick. And what you're going to notice is a bi-directional integration, okay? So we have a status update back to Splunk that ServiceNow has received the information and the work is in progress. And we have a ticket number down here at the bottom, which is going to be security incident number 948. So we heard some terms earlier in the presentation, like security operations. Well, what we're going to be looking at in ServiceNow is part of the security operations application suite. In ServiceNow, we're going to be specifically focusing in on the security incident response module. And what you're looking at here is actually the security analyst workspace. I'm logged in as an AT&T analyst, so this is the UI where they'll be processing the response to the security incident. And we're going to be focusing mainly today on the right side here where we have our playbook. So we're going to be really looking at the workflow automation and some orchestration via integrations. Today specifically, you're going to see an integration with the Palo Alto firewall. You won't see it in this particular ticket, but we'll be building upon these use cases, and you'll see the workflow get a little more complex with each use case. And our final use cases where you'll see that integration. Okay, so the first thing to notice here is that we don't have a playbook running yet. And in this use case, this analyst is actually going to have to take a look at the information on this ticket to kind of figure out how to respond. And the first thing that they're going to notice is that the configuration item or the device that was accessed is actually listed here. So the analyst can actually go into the record and get some and read some information about it. And we'll see that this device has actually been classified as critical piece of infrastructure. There's a note that it's a high value asset. So with that in mind, the analyst goes back to their training and they realize that we have a playbook for that. And we'll go ahead and actually run this. So we're going to click our high value asset playbook and click yes. And so what you're seeing in the background on the right side here, we're loading the playbook. The workflow is kicking in, and we're just going to wait for that to load up the work that would be done here. This particular use case is actually very simple. It's an auto closure. This is a notification that goes to the end user notifying them that they violated this policy. All right, so we had an email that went out. I'm going to show you that email in just a second. We also have an automated post-incident review, which you're actually going to see in each one of our tickets today. You know, this doesn't have to be automated. This could be something that gets taken with a task in a meeting and you do your review of what happened. We'll be doing that in all of them, like I said. All right, let me go into the timeline so that you can see the email that went out. We're going to go into the details here, and we have the user data in sync with Splunk, so we know who did it. We can send them an email, and we can say, hey, you violated this policy. Now, you know, this is just a sample. We might want to, you know, further refine this workflow to maybe notify their manager if they do it again in the next month or so, whatever the policy might be. And if they do it again, maybe we have a ticket that goes to HR. So one of ServiceNow's strengths is to, you know, do your workflow, your process, and enforce it. Okay, and I'll pass it back to you, Ray, for the next use case.
All right, thanks. So for our second use case, we have a satellite user. So we're going to call the satellite user Matt. So Matt's a employee working at a satellite office using government furnished equipment. So his job is he needs to go out to the internet to do some research. But along that, he can also do some personal web browsing, and he can access his personal banking, right? Some of the things that we like the IT department determined that there's some high risk sites, right? So in this case, we determined that Reddit, we want to provide some limited access to Reddit. So we want to be able to read things, but we don't want him to post anything. So let's take a look to see the components for this. All right, so back in our diagram, we have Matt who's sitting in the satellite office. He is going to be connecting to the internet, and that policy is going to be enforced in our AT&T government trusted internet. The logs are going to still go to Splunk over here, and we're going to see some orchestration over there with ServiceNow. So the whole idea behind this is what we're doing is we're using the Cisco FISMA SD-WAN solution to be able to have that transport go all the way to the cloud to be able to enforce the policy. Because for all the network engineers and the security engineers, you know that when you're trying to size in, let's say you wanted to enforce that on premise, we know that when you're doing that, you have to figure out, well, how large does that box have to be? You know, what the processing, especially if you want to do SSL decryption, right? So instead, what you do is we can have a more lightweight device, and we're pushing all that security into the cloud to being enforced over there. So in this case, we're going to see that that Matt's able to do all these things. But the important thing is the monitoring, right? Being able to see all the traffic that's going out to the internet and be able to block certain things. All right, let's take a look at this Reddit posting. I am going to. All right, so here I'm on Reddit. So basically, the important thing is it's used to do a lot of troubleshooting, right? So we can get to this. If Matt needs to go to some personal sites, that can be monitored. Also some banking sites. And the reason why I'm bringing that up all has to do with the visibility and the SSL decryption. If we're not doing SSL decryption, we're not going to be able to get more detailed controls. So over here, if I wanted to create a post, I can create a post, say something like, okay, help me with my network. This is my config help, right? Just and try to post. We see that this is blocked, right? So the idea is we're sending the traffic, we're doing decryption in the cloud to be able to offload those resources, to be able to enforce those policies. And the reason why I bring up personal sites versus banking sites is maybe in your organization, you want to do the decryption for all the personal sites, but maybe for some sensitive personal things like banking or healthcare, you may choose to not do the decryption there. All right, so, just circling around back to the whole idea of zero trust, this has to do with like having a lot of visibility into what folks are doing. If we take a look back at our Splunk instance, we're going to see that this popped up, which is the attempt Reddit posting. And then we see that there is, I'll click here to refresh. And we see this attempt Reddit posting, and we have a ServiceNow ticket. Also, you might have noticed there's a personal use abuse. That could be set to however we want to, whether it's different sites, time of day, how much they're downloading, if they're watching Netflix, we can set that. All right, so I'm going to pass it back to Chris to talk about the ServiceNow.
Thanks, Ray. Let me share my screen again. Okay, before we get into the Reddit ticket, just want to point out that ServiceNow did come back in and close this previous notable incident that we had here in Splunk. So just to close the loop on the bidirectional integration there. And here's the Reddit event that we're going to process the security answer for. This is ticket number 950. I already have that pulled up in our analyst workspace. Again, I'm a AT&T SOC analyst. And this time you're going to notice that our playbook actually automatically ran because we had the right data come in from Splunk. And so we were able to match the data, which, some of that's up here. So the matching of, our category of policy violation, posting to web, it came from Splunk. So these fields are what allowed this playbook to run automatically. So this playbook we're building on the previous one. We're actually going to do some sort of investigation before anything happens here. And so we have our different security incident states. So during the analysis state, we actually have a ticket for the SOC analyst to do a Splunk investigation. And what you're going to see at the bottom is actually a knowledge article that has been pre-written with exact instructions for the SOC analyst to be able to do this Splunk investigation. So there's going to be no question for the SOC analyst about what they have to do. We even have a link to get into Splunk. And you can imagine that this would, even speed up onboarding a new SOC analyst, excuse me. So we're not going to go back and forth, me and Ray, to show the work there. I'm just going to go ahead and process this ticket, but we might want to put some notes about the investigation here. And this ticket here is actually a security incident response task, and it will actually record these notes on the parent security incident as well. And we can work this ticket right within this whole UI, never have to leave it if we don't want to. So I would have started that task, done the investigation, put my notes in, and then completed this task. And now the analyst doesn't have to think about what's next because the playbook is going to take care of that. This is actually going to close here, and it's going to notify the user that they're not allowed to be posting to the web. We're having auto closure, just like before. Our next use case, we'll have several steps here, so you'll get to see how we can kind of step through a process. But I want to point out real quick at the bottom here, we have what is called observables in ServiceNow. So this user actually went to reddit.com. So we took that data from Splunk and we put it in our observables because this is important. We can take action against this. We didn't do that here in this workflow. You will see that in the next one. I want to point that out so that you know what that is. And again, we have our history. So we had our email that went out. I'll show you this one. Went to the satellite user. So we know who did it. We were actually able to get some data from Splunk to tell them at what time, what device, etc. Okay. That'll do it for this use case. Back to you, Ray.
All right, thanks. All right, so we did our remote user use case. We had our branch or satellite office use case. Now we're doing our headquarters use case. So in our headquarters use case, we have Craig. He's an employee. He's an agency employee, but since he's been in the military, he has a lot of clearance. Right. So with that, he's got access to a lot of sensitive files. So typically on a normal day or a normal week, he accesses 1 or 2 files because he has to analyze those. But one Monday he comes in and he downloads a lot of files, triggering some alerts that something suspicious is going on. So really part of this whole zero trust is, you have to know the user, you have to see what they're doing. So let's take a look to see what that looks like in our architecture over here. So over here we have Craig. He's sitting at the headquarters location. He's being identified when he connects to the network. We're sitting behind, there's like a Palo Alto firewall that's sitting between him and the resources he's trying to get to. So those are the high valued assets, right? So we're also utilizing Splunk over here, and that's going to do orchestration to ServiceNow. But another thing we can do is utilize our endpoint, our Sentinel-1. So the whole idea is Craig's doing something suspicious. We need to do some investigation. We need to stop it as soon as possible. So we're going to be doing 2 things. We're going to be initiating a firewall block, right? And we're also going to be using Sentinel-1 to disconnect that workstation from the network. So let's take a look to see what that looks like in our demo. All right, so this is Craig's desktop. So we have some a mounted chair. So typically he's just accessing 1 or 2 files during the week so he can do the investigation. But for whatever reason, one day he comes in, grabs a bunch of files, and he just saves it on his desktop. So this type of tracking, right? So we're sending the logs, they're going to Splunk, we're determining that, hey, this is anomalous behavior, right? So if we take a look at our Splunk, we'll see that there is another event that was created that says multiple file download. And if we drill down a little further, there's a couple of things we can see here. We can see that it's linking to their specific machine. So we're going to see that after we look at the ServiceNow on what we can do to basically take his desktop offline for a while we're doing investigation. So if we do a refresh here, we'll see that there is a ServiceNow ticket, and I'm going to pass it off to Chris.
Thanks, Ray. I'll share my screen one more time. All right. Quickly, I want to point out we have tab browsing within this UI, so this is really nice for an analyst to be able to work maybe multiple security incidents at once. Okay, but we do have our playbook that ran automatically based off fields that came in from Splunk. And you'll notice that the first task that we have here is to block an observable. Now, maybe in the future, if we mature this, we might block this automatically based off history of tickets. But in this case, the analyst is actually going to execute some orchestration to issue that block from within the tool. And you're going to see at the bottom here, I mentioned we have a knowledge article that describes what to do. And you'll note we're dynamically matching those knowledge articles to these tasks. And in ServiceNow, we call that a run book. And you're going to see that with a couple of tasks here on this ticket. But there's a series of steps that the analyst has to take to do this. So we have the instructions there. They would follow those instructions, and they're going to head over to the Explore section of this security incident, and we're going to get down into our observables. So we might have a couple here. We might have just one. But in this case, this is actually an IP address that we need to block. So we'll select that, and depending on how many integrations we have or actions we want to take that we've built out, we would have them available here. But we're just going to show you a block request. So go ahead and run that. And again, this is actually our integration via orchestration with the Palo Alto firewall. So we have a couple of points that we can do. And in this case, we're going to do an IP block outbound. So we'll pick that implementation because the observable is an IP address, and we'll submit that. So in the background, we're doing API calls into the firewall. We're going to get some immediate feedback here in a few seconds. We'll just go ahead and wait for that. So the block request was executed successfully. Okay, so that device has been blocked. And we'll go ahead as the analyst and mark this complete. And all the analyst has to do now is wait for the next step in the playbook. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we'll see immediately we have a task to disconnect the workstation. Again, maybe in the future, this is automated. We go right into SentinelOne to do that. But we're going to have a task to do that here. And I'm going to do several tasks right here. And then we'll have Ray show you what they may have been doing in SentinelOne. So I go down to the bottom here, notice my runbook has matched the disconnect workstation knowledge article with this task. So we could go into SentinelOne from here, follow whatever steps might be there, start the task, and we'll mark it complete. And then we're going to wait for the workflow to kick off the next series of actions. So we'll just wait for that. It should be just a few seconds. Okay, so I want to jump back in here because an email went out to the user informing them that their workstation was disconnected. All right, pending an investigation. So now we have a ticket for the analyst to do a deep visibility investigation, which is something that would be done in SentinelOne. Again, we would have a knowledge article here explaining what they need to do. And we'll just go ahead and close this since you kind of probably had the idea by now how this works. And we'll just wait again. We're going to have one more task come up. Task is going to be to reconnect the workstation based off of the investigation. So just wait a few more seconds here. So now we have a task, obviously, for the reconnect. And again, just pointing out that we have a different run book down here at the bottom. And we'll just go ahead and close this out. And now this ticket's going to wrap itself up. It's going to close. We have all of our history again. I won't show you the emails again since you've kind of got the idea, but we have emails, we have history of field changes. We actually have our automated post-incident review report available for download. And our ticket is closed out here. All right, back to you, Ray.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Chris. All right, let me show you what happened on Craig's desktop over here. So then on Craig's desktop, basically, I just logged into like the Palo Alto firewall to show that, through that orchestration, there was an IP address that was blocked on the firewall. So that can be one of the things. So when I try to get to this high value share, is not able to get to it because it's being blocked by the firewall. So that's pretty interesting. But what's more, I guess, would be a little more better is to be able to take that machine offline, right? So like we referred to before, is this, it has a link directly to the workstation through Sentinel-1. So if I go and or this would be the SOC analyst, they would go ahead and click on this, and then it'll bring up this workstation. So this is the Sentinel-1 portal that can control the end device, so Craig's machine. So over here, we see that, oh, well, we don't know what he's doing, and maybe we should just take him off while we're doing the investigation. Click on here, and we're gonna just go ahead and disconnect from the network. So essentially what's happening is the Sentinel-1 agent in the background is disconnecting the device from the network, or applying a lot of firewall rules so that there's no traffic that can go in and out except for controlled traffic to Sentinel-1. So you can see that I'm trying to click on it and I lost connectivity because I'm terminal serviced in. So while that machine is offline, our SOC analysts, they would come into here, they could do some deep visibility. And so what deep visibility is you can take a look at the processes on the machine. You can see the processes that are running, what they've been doing. You could download the logs, right? In this case, we're gonna, our SOC analyst does some investigation, finds out, there's really nothing that suspicious about this. They find out that that Craig got a promotion and that he needed to do additional work, so he downloaded all those files, right? So that's just normal, everyday thing. It's a little unusual, but it's nothing malicious. So you see that his workstation is disconnected, but what we can do is we can come back remotely and just go ahead and reconnect his desktop. So basically what we're doing in summary is we're doing the monitoring, seeing some anomalous behavior, blocking on the firewall, doing the investigation with the agent, being able to take them offline while we're doing the investigation, and then bringing them back online when we see that everything is checked, everything's okay. So we're back online over here. All right, so that's our third scenario. We have one more that I want to talk through, and I think this is pretty interesting. All right, so this is our machine-to-machine use case. So a lot of times I think what we're seeing now is basically multi-factor authentication everywhere. When we try to get to our bank accounts, we're being prompted to do multi-factor authentication. What's overlooked a lot of times is machine-to-machine traffic. So in the same way, these days there's APIs that use static passwords, right? Static API tokens to be able to get access to certain applications. What we could do is add multi-factor authentication using Corsia. So let's take a look to see what this looks like in the network. So over here, we have a Corsia client. So basically this is the front end to the fingerprint server, and it's going to talk to the fingerprint database back here, right? So what we're going to see is we're going to reuse an API key to be able to extract information, right? And then we're going to turn on multi-factor authentication to be able to add an extra layer of protection with that. All right, so let's go back to our demo. Screen. All right, so on the left side, I have our fingerprint search. So this is the research site that Lonnie, in our first scenario, she uses this to get access and do research or background research. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do let's say she goes ahead and does some background research. We can see that on the client side, we're accessing the database using only a static API key. So when she does the searches, find that that's the API key. Then we have, I'll call this malicious person, Sean. So Sean comes in, compromises this, or finds out what the API key is. And he comes and he starts extracting data, right? So in this case, what he does is reuses that API key, is able to extract this data, right? So let's say that Sean goes, starts extracting the data, posts it in the dark web, right? Finds out, and then this agency finds out, hey, something's happening. Somebody's reusing our keys. You can see over here, we did a third request. So this is Sean actually reaching in, being unauthorized, but happens to have that API key, being able to extract information, right? So a week later, this agency decides, you know what? We know that it's coming from here. We're going to use Corsia to protect that fingerprint data. So we're turning on Corsia, and what that does is adds multi-factor authentication. So if I go ahead and do a couple searches, we'll see that besides having an API key, we also have another factor. We'll call it a Corsia credential, right? Multi-factor authentication. If we take a look at the very end, we can see that this constantly rotates. And then we have our malicious person, Sean, trying to still use it, right? So maybe he captures a credential, a one-time credential, and tries to extract more information, but he can't do that, right? Because it's a one-time password. So as this is going on, we see our Splunk instance and our CNOSC sees that somebody's trying to continually access this, right? And then maybe we decide that, oh, although this application is still protected because we're doing multi-factor, maybe what we can do is we can just go ahead and shut down that API, right? Just to be extra careful. So what we have here is the console, right? In the console, we have control over specific APIs. So instead of having to shut the whole server down, we can just shut down specific APIs. So I'm going to just go log in. And we say halt this machine, right? And we go ahead and stop that API. And we come back here. And when we try to do a search, we see that it's being blocked, right? So essentially what we're doing, multi-factor authentication for APIs, machine to machine. Let's go ahead and take a look at sorry, I have to switch this. I gotta go back here. Take a look at our Splunk instance over here. And we can see that within our monitoring, within the CNOSC, we'll be able to see that somebody is trying to use invalid credentials to try to get into that server. All right, so that wraps up our scenarios. I'm going to go ahead, and this is the last part. We went over the scenarios. We saw some of the dashboards. I'm going to turn it over to Chris to go over the executive dashboard. Chris, you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Yeah, so can you put that screen back up? So the security manager dashboards are essentially a collection of reports in ServiceNow. So we have all this data coming in from Splunk creating security incidents, and we want to present it in a meaningful way to decision makers like our security managers or the chief information security officer. So we're going to do that with the dashboard. And I'm going to jump off video, go back and share my screen here real quick. Okay. So like I was saying, we need to present the data in a meaningful manner to decision makers, and the dashboards allow us to do that. And this is just an example. You know, the dashboards can be tailored to your organization's needs. But just to give you a quick idea, I mean, we have, let's say we want to know our total critical security incidents. We have a nice counter here. This is actually live data. So if we get a new one come in, this would jump to 205. I could click this and actually go in and take a look at the security incidents that encompass that number. We have, you know, a number for high security incidents for the team. There's also some other meaningful metrics like average time to identify a security incident. This number might be high. Average time to contain, maybe we want to get this number down. So just some examples there. We also have a way of classifying by configuration item. So we have, you know, in our first example, we had that fingerprint server. That may have been a Linux server. Maybe we have an issue going on with our Linux server for some reason. But all that data can be lined up with our CMDB. We can also present data and trend lines. In this particular example, it's just a trend by category over date. Okay, so it's just different ways that we can present the data. So we also have another dashboard example here. This is a little bit more of an overview. Maybe we just want to know how many security incidents we have. We could click in here. We have our security incidents by attack category. You can see policy violations right here at the top tend to be dominating. So maybe we need to do a better job of training our staff, our employees. We have a heat map for our work groups, right? So security incident response team, which looks normal that they would have a lot of tickets, but maybe they need a better job of delegating work to different teams like your Unix team or maybe your Windows or network teams. So that could give you an idea, maybe even where you need more resources. And if we have good location data, we can even get an idea of what it looks like on the map, and we can maybe we have a geographic issue. Okay. So this is just a quick look at how we can present the data. And again, this can be tailored for your organization. And so I think that does it for what we're going to be demonstrating. I'll pass it off to Matt for closing. Is Matt here?
Sorry, I got muted on the the Zoom as well.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, so appreciate the time, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for handing off.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Wanted to showcase everybody's, or showcase the demos that ATARC had, the use cases ATARC had presented within the AT&T Zone flavor. We will leave some time for questions and answers here for everybody. If we don't get to it, we will try to answer them via email or any other method that makes sense. But appreciate the time, and we'll open it up.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. If anyone has any questions, now would be the time to ask those, or you can put them in the chat. I'll moderate the chat for a little bit. I'm going to keep recording for right now. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, go ahead. Anybody at all?
Hi, could you hear me? I'm Gopal.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, the great presentation from the AT&T, and but the question is, every time the different cases when you are using the tools like Splunk and ServiceNow. So if any agency don't want to use or spend these tools, or they don't have licenses, or how that works?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the question is, in an instance where an agency doesn't have the tool set or or has the tool set but doesn't have the licensing, how would we approach that?
Yeah, how we wanted to use the AT&T network, but at the same time, we don't want to use the Splunk and we don't want to use the ServiceNow capabilities.
So you're asking if you can just
Yeah,
use the AT&T
without
network without these tools?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if these tools are examples of what we can integrate and work with, if there's a specific tool set or existing, existing investment that the agency either has or wants to work with, that's something we can definitely look to support. We aren't fully married to these tools, or that's the vendor agnostic approach we opened up and led with. But these are some of the vendor partners we have worked with in the past, and we're used for in this particular demo instance.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just want to add. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like AWS Watchers or like any other tools. A lot of tools are there. Dynatrace or whatever that agency is specific, and also sometimes customize the scripts with the Python programming with the AWS, and we don't want to spend the money on the tools, and we wanted to use the AT&T network, but at the same time, the code utilization way, if somebody is using the network outside or laptops, the same way how you are presenting this, is it possibilities are there or not? Just checking that one. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think what we're demonstrating, like, I don't think we expect any one agency to buy all these tools or buy what we have put together all together. But like what we're trying to present here is really this integration between multiple tools, networks, and things like that. So with these, a lot of it is customized, especially for our federal agencies, right? Because they're very customized. They already have their existing tool set. So what we want to do is we want to come in, and this is part of like the proof of concept lab, right? So we want to be able to talk to the agency, and then to see, okay, well, what do you have? Let's see if it will work. If it's like, well, we don't know, we can put it in our proof of concept lab, test it out, and start helping them, helping our different agencies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like I have a question from the chat. It says, do you use Palo SASE POPs from Prisma Access or only Prisma Access hosted at your network?
Yeah, I'll go and answer that. Or
Okay.
Lonnie, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. We definitely are. Palo Alto is a partner of our services here. We utilize Prisma Access as part of our AT&T Government Trusted Internet to provide that cloud security. We also utilize Palo Alto SD-WAN or SASE endpoint products. We're working to incorporate that into a government compliant offer as well. If there's a particular interest in Palo Alto, we can definitely support it. As mentioned earlier, we're vendor agnostic, and we'd love to have a further conversation about that. But we have multiple endpoint vendor products.
Yeah, to answer the question around the POPs, right, we do leverage the Prisma Access nodes, right, the CONUS and even OCONUS ones if necessary. In the case of this demo, there's also virtualized firewalls, I believe, right, Ray, to provide some of the enforcement?
Yeah, yep. I mean, so when we take a look at the Prisma Access, yeah, there's the ones that are certified for the government, there's ones outside, but also if there needs to be some sort of custom firewalls, like putting PAN-OS or Palo Alto firewalls in the cloud, we can do that. So it can either be on-prem or in the cloud.
Or a combination thereof. Yeah. For remote users, for example, if they want to leverage the Prisma Access nodes versus branch office or HQ users that may be better suited to leverage on-premise, Palo Alto firewalls or other solutions.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop recording.